The Exorcism of Emily Rose, the true case of Anneliese Michel, on a cold July morning in 1976, in the small town of Klingenberg, West Germany, a 23-year-old woman was found dead in her bed. Her body weighed just over 30 kilograms, covered in wounds, bruises, and bite marks. Her real name was Anneliese Michel, but you probably know her as Emily Rose, the name used in the film adaptation of her case. The real story, however, is even more disturbing than any movie. Anneliese was born in 1952 into a devout Catholic family. From a young age, she was sweet, studious, and deeply faithful. Everything changed in 1968, when at 16, she had her first seizure. Doctors diagnosed temporal lobe epilepsy, a condition that affects behavior and perception, potentially causing hallucinations and personality changes. But Anneliese's symptoms extended beyond seizures. In the following years, she began reporting demonic visions, shadowy figures watching her, and voices telling her she was damned. Her mental condition deteriorated despite heavy medication. Psychiatrists believed she suffered from schizophrenia, but her family saw something more. Anneliese began rejecting religious objects, claimed dark figures pursued her, and that a force took over her body, preventing her from praying. She tore off her clothes, self-harmed, ate insects, and even licked urine off the floor. She started sleeping on the cold floor, refused to eat, and said she was possessed by multiple entities. Among them, Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, Nero, and Hitler. Desperate, her parents turned to the church. After investigations, two experienced priests, Ernst Alt and Arnold Renz, believed in the case's authenticity and obtained authorization from the bishop to perform an exorcism under the Roman ritual, rarely authorized in modern times. Anneliese Michel's exorcism sessions weren't conducted in churches or sacred places, but in her own bedroom, in her home in the small town of Klingenberg. The room was dark, with windows covered by sheets and crosses in every corner. Fathers Alt and Renz performed the rituals following the old Roman rite, a rigorous sequence of prayers, commands, and interrogations directed at the possessing entities. Anneliese, often lying down or restrained to prevent self-harm, responded in multiple voices, often harsh, deep, or distorted. During some sessions, attendees reported that the young woman spoke in languages she had never learned, such as Aramaic and Classical Latin. In others, her body seemed to acquire unnatural strength. It took 3 people to restrain her as she writhed or tried to hurt herself. She tore out parts of her hair, bit her own flesh, and screamed disjointed phrases as if multiple consciousnesses were fighting for space within her. The voices alternated between accusatory and pleading. Sometimes the speaker seemed to mock the priests. Other times, it begged for mercy. Each session lasted between 1 and 4 hours. At the end, the room exuded a smell described as rotten meat and sulfur. Witnesses spoke of shadows on the walls, flickering lights, and a sudden drop in temperature. Anneliese's father said he heard banging inside the walls at night and footsteps on the stairs when everyone was already asleep. Recordings made during the ritual capture piercing screams, hysterical laughter, and long stretches of prayers interrupted by curses and blasphemies. Anneliese's voice, at times, sounded like that of a dying old woman, at others, like a lost child. Despite the suffering, she insisted on continuing. She told the priests, "Don't stop. I want to fight until the end. I want everyone to know that demons exist." According to the priests, in her brief moments of lucidity, Anneliese claimed to see angels beside her bed, watching in silence. In one of the final sessions, considered the most intense, she reportedly stated that 2 of the entities were about to leave her, but Lucifer still clung to her soul. The recording from that day features a deep male voice shouting, "She is mine," followed by sounds resembling furniture being dragged, even though everyone in the room remained still. The priests became convinced that the spiritual battle was reaching its climax. In total, 67 exorcism sessions were conducted between September 1975 and July 1976. Many were documented on cassette tapes, which still circulate among occult scholars and religious investigators. In some segments, overlapping voices seem to converse among themselves, interrupting prayers and provoking the priests with intimate information no one else should know. During the months of exorcism, Anneliese refused food, saying the demons wouldn't allow her to eat. She ended up weighing less than a child, suffering from dehydration, malnutrition, and exhaustion. Even so, she continued to assert that the sacrifice was necessary for the redemption of sinners. On July 1, 1976, Anneliese died. The official report determined that the cause of death was starvation. The news spread quickly, and the case gained international proportions. Her parents and the priests were accused of negligent homicide. The trial took place in 1978 and lasted weeks. The court found them guilty, but imposed light sentences, recognizing that the accused genuinely believed they were saving the young woman. The Catholic Church, despite authorizing the exorcism, publicly distanced itself from the case after the repercussions. However, to this day, many religious individuals and scholars consider Anneliese Michel's case as the only truly recognized exorcism in modern times, with official documentation, witnesses, and audio recordings. During the 1978 trial, the court heard over 40 witnesses, including doctors, psychiatrists, and theology experts. The prosecutor argued that Anneliese needed continuous psychiatric treatment and that her parents, as well as the priests, allowed her death through negligence, trapped by religious conviction. The defense maintained that all involved sincerely believed she was possessed and that conventional treatments had failed. The German and international media closely followed every detail of the case, turning it into a social phenomenon. Sensationalist headlines, photos of Anneliese's room, and excerpts from the exorcism tapes fueled a heated debate about faith, science, and responsibility. Documentaries, academic articles, and books were released in the following years, re-examining the case from different perspectives. In the years that followed, Anneliese's grave became a pilgrimage site. People reported feeling a spiritual presence in the cemetery. Some claimed to see the young woman in dreams. Theories began to circulate that the exorcism wasn't complete, that the entity remained active, or that Anneliese had indeed been a martyr. Even after the trial ended, her story didn't disappear. In the following decade, it inspired academic articles, religious books, and studies on the intersection of faith, psychology, and the paranormal. But it was in 2005 that Anneliese's story returned with full force to the popular imagination. The film The Exorcism of Emily Rose brought the story to the global cinema screens. Although the feature film Americanized the characters and changed names, such as Anneliese, who became Emily Rose, many of the events portrayed were faithfully based on real accounts. The exorcism sessions, the original audios, the trial, and the community's reactions. The film mixed courtroom drama with supernatural horror, posing a disturbing question. What if it was all true? The impact was immediate. The public was divided between skeptics and believers. Psychologists warned about the risks of neglecting medical treatments in the name of faith. Religious groups pointed to the film as a warning about the return of evil in modern times. The debate reignited with full force, bringing back to light the real figure behind the fiction, Anneliese Michel. Shortly after Anneliese's burial, reports of unusual events emerged in the village of Klingenberg. Some residents claimed to hear screams coming from the cemetery during the night. Others said they saw a female figure kneeling beside the tombstone, even on rainy nights. Although never proven, these stories further fueled the fascination and fear surrounding the case. Former schoolmates of Anneliese also reported strange dreams in which she appeared dressed in white, asking for prayers or simply watching in silence. A teacher recounted, in an interview years later, that she felt a spiritual weight whenever she passed near the house where the young woman had lived. The priests involved, Alt and Renz, reported being haunted by manifestations. Both claimed to hear voices in their homes and suffer from nighttime disturbances even after the rituals ended. Although they never performed exorcisms again, they continued to assert that what they witnessed with Anneliese was real, something that defied any explanation. The experiences left deep marks on the Michel family. The mother, Anna, maintained a room with religious images dedicated to her daughter until her death. Joseph Michel, the father, rarely spoke about the subject publicly. In interviews, he only said, "She fought against evil. No one can understand what we lived through." The impact of Anneliese Michel's case goes far beyond horror. It touches on fundamental questions of the human condition. What is evil? To what extent can our mind betray us? And when does faith become a risk? To this day, Anneliese Michel's case is studied in psychology, law, and theology courses, remembered as one of the most complex and controversial episodes in modern history, involving the supernatural and the judicial system. Her name continues to echo in debates about faith, medicine, negligence, and the possibility of embodied evil. Her story remains alive, challenging easy explanations and reminding us that there are thin boundaries between the spiritual and the mental. Boundaries that, once crossed, may never be repaired. And you? Do you believe that Anneliese Michel was possessed? Or was she just a young woman brutally forgotten by the healthcare system? Do you know another real case that should be told here? Write in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Because some stories don't ask to be heard. They demand it.